I'm Larry Meyer. I'm a Toledo attorney. I've been a lifelong music fan. I'm also now a working musician. And over the years, as part of my law practice, I'm also involved representing musicians and artists. I've worked hard to develop a knowledge of and an interest in the business of music. I think everybody thinks if they could just get a record label deal that the rest of it will be taken care of, and that's not necessarily the case. It depends on the kind of deal. It depends how much you can gather a team, I think, to market and promote the release. For so many people, especially today, it still comes down to living out of a van or a tour bus. But if someone understands the different revenue streams that are available and how to make that work and how to assemble a team, it still can be done. There are a number of resources that are out there. One in particular I'll mention, CD Baby and the CD Baby DIY blog. All kinds of great information and practical tips. Probably the most fundamental thing for anyone to understand is the fact that in a finished product, there are two copyrights. There's a copyright in the underlying musical composition. Somebody wrote the song, right? And there's a separate copyright in the finished sound recording. You might call it the master, but this is the finished record. And how those two things interact, and the fact that they are two distinct and different revenue streams. If you have an understanding of that, that's your first step forward. Everybody says royalties. I mean, I read an article about this, and I'm usually left with more questions than answers because I'm looking at it from a lawyer perspective. And when someone says royalties, well, which? There's all kinds of royalties. And one of the things that you're entitled to as the owner of the composition, right, whether it's you or you assigned your rights to a publishing company, are public performance royalties. And that's typically delivered through an organization such as BMI, ASCAP, or CSAC, and it's a function of broadcast use of your music. If it doesn't get any spins on the radio, if it doesn't get used on a TV show, there's not going to be any performing rights organizations money, but that's a separate and distinct revenue source. The other thing that's available are mechanical royalties, the typical phrase, mechanical royalties, for reproduction of the song. The classic example is if you want to do a cover version of the song, right? You can do that, but you got to pay. And there's a set rate set by the federal government. And there are companies that can assist in this licensing process. But those are two different distinct revenue streams that both arise out of ownership of the composition. Right now, it's a transitional phase. I think some things are still being sorted out. But with streaming, we all know it doesn't pay a lot, but it does pay. And understanding how that works, for example, you hear a lot of, for example, classic rockers who are tied into a traditional old school recording contract, for example. Maybe they got, just to pick a number, maybe they got an 18% royalty. Royalty, what kind of royalty? On unit sales, all right? Well, so now when you've got micro pennies coming in, but piling up, but they're still micro pennies, the record companies are turning around and wanting to give them 18% of that amount, all right? No wonder they're not happy. What I see more often today, or especially from indie record companies, smaller, more nimble, right? More on the cutting edge, that we're not going to worry about all these different revenue streams and what you get from each one. It all goes in the same pot. The record label and the artist have a partnership. We're going to work together to maximize that flow. And at the end of the day, we're going to split the net proceeds 50-50. The only thing that's even better is if you own all the rights yourself, if there's not a record company involved. If you're in a position to do that, and few people are, right? If you're in a position to do that, I mean, information is out there. I've seen articles and graphs that say that you can end up keeping like 60 cents on the dollar that comes in from streaming services. Right? So there are success stories out there.